Hey everyone, and welcome back at Timeless Echoes, Wisdom of the Vedas, presented by Namaskar America. I'm so excited for today's deep dive. We're going to be exploring Ahimsa.
Yeah.
It's this foundational principle of the Vedas, and it's something that I think we can all benefit from learning more about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sources that you've shared with me leading up to this have been really thought-provoking.
Yes, yes. I think Ahimsa is, you know, it's a familiar term for a lot of us, especially those who are familiar with yoga and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's always more to uncover, as with anything, the more you kind of dig into it, the more kind of like nuances and layers come up.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that seems so simple on the surface, but then when you actually start to think about it,
Yeah.
it gets really complex.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Yes, totally. We hear Ahimsa, we think nonviolence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so don't hit people.
Don't hurt.
Don't physically harm, right?
Right.
Well, then it's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean?
Exactly.
Like, how far does that go?
Yeah.
How do you actually practice that in a world, that seems to be full of conflict?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, really excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah. And I think what's fascinating is that, when we look at the Vedas, especially as it's highlighted in yogic philosophy, it goes so much deeper than just the physical act of nonviolence.
So would you say, like, the Vedic perspective on Ahimsa really kind of encompasses like the thought, the word, and the deed, like the whole spectrum of human action?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Vedas teach us that the divine resides in all beings, and that makes the practice of Ahimsa not just a moral obligation, but a way to honor that divine spark.
I like that.
Within ourselves and within others. So that means, Ahimsa encompasses nonviolence in our thoughts, our words, and our actions.
So even if you're, harboring negative thoughts towards someone, that could be considered a violation of Ahimsa.
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you're constantly judging someone in your mind or harboring resentment, that's a form of violence. Or if you're speaking harshly or using hurtful language, again, that's a form of violence.
Yeah.
The yamas, which are outlined in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, they offer us these ethical guidelines for living a meaningful life. And Ahimsa, being that first yama, really highlights the importance of minimizing harm.
Yeah, and I think that's such a, an important point, right?
Yeah.
Because I think so often in our modern world, I don't know, maybe it's always been like this, but it seems like there's just so much, conflict and negativity, flying around, right? Like, it's so easy to get caught up in that, and so it's like, how do you actually put Ahimsa into practice when you're constantly surrounded by these, by negativity or by these, situations where it's hard to not feel angry or frustrated, right?
Yeah. And I think that's really, the core of the challenge. And the Vedic teachings remind us that true power doesn't lie in forcing our will on others. It's not about winning arguments or always being right.
Yeah.
True power lies in mastering our own reactions, choosing peace over conflict, even when it's tough.
So it's more about taking that pause, taking that breath, and trying to understand the situation better rather than just immediately, reacting, with anger or frustration.
Exactly. And that's where understanding comes in. How can understanding play a role in practicing Ahimsa?
Yeah.
Especially when we're faced with behaviors that maybe trigger us,
Yeah.
And the Vedas emphasize the interconnectedness of all beings. And this resonates, with that famous quote from the Upanishads, Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. So recognizing this interconnectedness makes practicing Ahimsa, I think, a way of life, not just a set of rules.
So it's about recognizing that that we're all connected, right?
Yeah.
That our actions impact others and vice versa.
Exactly.
So how does that actually help us in those conflict situations, right?
Yeah.
So does that mean that we always have to agree with others, or what does that actually look like in practice?
Not necessarily that we always have to agree, right?
Yeah.
But it's about cultivating that inner space of non-harm. It's responding with understanding even when we're faced with hostility. It's not about being passive. It's about making a conscious choice.
Yeah.
to act from a place of love, even when there are all these other emotions swirling around.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that's such a powerful, powerful point, right?
Yeah.
It's about like, it's about making that choice,
Yeah.
right? It's about like, striving to be better
Mm-hmm.
rather than just, reacting in the way that maybe we're, conditioned to react or whatever, based on past experiences.
Exactly.
So like, what are some like practical ways that we can kind of weave ahimsa into our daily lives?
Yeah, so I think it starts with awareness,
Okay.
you know, paying attention to our thoughts, the words that we use, how we react to situations.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gossiping? Are we being unnecessarily critical?
Yeah.
Are we holding on to grudges?
Mm-hmm.
These are all opportunities to practice ahimsa.
And it's not about like beating ourselves up when we slip up.
Absolutely not. It's about recognizing those moments, learning from them, and gently guiding ourselves back
Yeah.
to a place of kindness and understanding. Just like take a moment, think about a time when you were in a disagreement or conflict with someone. You know, did you choose to respond with compassion or react out of anger? It's a really powerful thing to kind of look back and reflect on that.
Yeah, totally.
And, things like meditation, mindful listening, even choosing to use more positive language. These are
Yeah.
all incredibly powerful tools.
Yeah, it reminds me of that quote by Mahatma Gandhi, right?
Yeah.
Like nonviolence is the greatest force at the disposal of mankind.
Yes.
And it's so true. I think it really speaks to like the transformative power of ahimsa, both personally, but also, on a larger scale.
Yeah, exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And by embracing ahimsa, we can begin to heal ourselves, our relationships, and, contribute to a more peaceful world.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful way to kind of like wrap up, this deep dive into ahimsa on Timeless Echoes presented by Namaskar America. I want to leave everyone with a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
What is one small step, right,
Yeah.
that you can take today to
Yes.
bring more ahimsa into your interactions?
Yeah.
Maybe it's, choosing your words more carefully, taking a deep breath before reacting, or, just offering a kind smile to a stranger, right?
Yeah.
Every little bit counts.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think this deep dive has given, all of our listeners some tools.
Yeah.
And now it's up to each of us to discover how we can make ahimsa a part of our journey.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe together we can start to shift the tide toward a more peaceful
Yes.
and compassionate world. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
And until next time, keep exploring the timeless wisdom of the Vedas.
Namaste.
Namaste.